Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So today we'll be watching a video titled "Where was the feeding of the 5,000?" Bible Contradiction number 15. If you are wondering what is the context of me watching all of these Bible contradiction videos, read the description box below. So without further ado, let's watch.
Supposed Bible contradiction. The location of the feeding of the 5,000. Luke chapter 9 records the feeding of the 5,000 happened in a desolate place outside of the town of Bethsaida. John 6 and Matthew 14 report that after this event, Jesus had his disciples get into a boat and travel to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, to the land of Capernaum and Gennesaret. The two cities were right next to each other and associated with the land or region, so they both agreed Jesus and his disciples left this side of the sea and traveled to the other side, to the land of Gennesaret, or the area of Capernaum. However, we encounter a problem when we read this event in Mark 6. Mark agrees that after the feeding of the 5,000, they were commanded to go to the other side of the sea, but he says they went to Bethsaida, not that they started there. So did Mark contradict the other gospel authors and assume the feeding of the 5,000 happened on the other side of the Sea of Galilee? Well, the whole crux of this alleged contradiction is based on the phrase, to Bethsaida. First, Mark actually agrees with the other gospel writers that Jesus and the disciples were on this side when the feeding of the 5,000 happened, because he says just after this, only a few sentences later, when they had crossed over, they came to the land at Gennesaret and moored to the shore. So Mark does realize they crossed over from this area to this region. So why would Mark say just before this that Jesus said for the disciples to go to Bethsaida? Well, this can be resolved by simply realizing that the Greek phrase here, pros Bethsaidon, has more than one possible meaning. It can mean to Bethsaida, but as James White notes, it can also mean towards Bethsaida.
Mark 6:45, immediately Jesus made his disciples get in the boat and go ahead of him. Kai pra again eis ta peron pros Bethsaidon. Unto the other side. And of course, the issue is, what does pros mean? Pros can mean to Bethsaida. But anyone who spends much time reading Greek and dealing with Greek prepositions, especially when it comes to travel and things like that, knows that that's not the only way that it can be translated, especially in talking about directional travel.
This reading of towards Bethsaida makes more sense with the actual words of Mark itself.
So does this mean that it is an issue of translation? Because what is being addressed here is that the translation is mistakenly using to and not towards, and hence give the mistaken understanding.
Remember that the miracle happened not in the town of Bethsaida, but close by in a desolate place, probably somewhere south along the shores of Galilee. Since the disciples left by boat after, they were not in Bethsaida but close by. So after this event was over, to avoid the crowds, they would take a boat to get to the next town. And remember, Mark does in fact agree they crossed over to Gennesaret, not that they landed in Bethsaida. So that would most likely mean Mark meant Jesus' phrase to mean row back towards Bethsaida, or row in that general direction. In other words, in Mark 6:45, Jesus told them to row towards a general direction, not that that would be their final destination. If Mark meant his phrase to mean to Bethsaida and not towards Bethsaida, we should expect to read in Mark that after Jesus walked on water, they landed in Bethsaida, not that they landed in the land of Gennesaret. So Jesus probably told them to row in faith in a certain direction. And then he caught up with them and they made the rest of the trip to their next destination. Thus, this supposed contradiction can be resolved.
Alright, yeah. I'm not sure what's the beginning. Yeah, I think this is just the issue of the wording to begin with. But in light of what we have covered in Bible Contradiction number 14, the discrepancies like this, shouldn't it just be addressed as like this have nothing to do with any contradiction with regard to theology or belief, hence a small issue, and just ignore or something like that, right? Because it doesn't, even if you don't resolve it, why bother, right? Based on that narrative. Anyway, so with that, thank you for watching. See you next time.